Hi guys, it's Rich
Hello.
here.
Hey.
Steve and Gary with me, and we're going to kick off another episode tonight with an update from Steve.
Hey.
Drum roll. Go.
What we got? We got Kickstarter news. So, as we think we said last week, we were going to start this week, and we have made a start on them. And the first batch will be dispatching tomorrow. So that's good, and then we'll have another batch going out next week, and so over the next probably 3 weeks we should be just about cleared of them all. Which, considering everything we've had to contend with over the last couple of months, I'm pretty pleased about, to be honest.
I think everybody should be pleased about that.
Yeah,
it'd be fantastic when people start getting that in their hands.
Yeah. I have to say, a few of the guys have been very flexible in what they've done to make it happen. So yeah, so that's really good news.
So thank you very much, stress the team.
Hey,
What we like to hear. Awesome work.
Yeah, so that's sort of been the drive this week, is to get that started. You know, we'd said June was the original fulfillment time, so we're gonna hit that. So I'm really pleased.
Yes, indeed, and we're going to this bank holiday weekend with some great news. Fantastic.
Indeed.
So I'll be looking forward to seeing lots of Alamos starting to be painted out and about. I'm sure everybody's going to be scratching their heads about techniques and how they're going to hit those Adobe buildings. So Gary, any tips and hints for those wanting to paint the Alamo sets?
Take it easy. They are pretty simple to do. There's a couple of ways. I actually built these ones where I normally wouldn't build the kit. I built the kit, but I didn't stick it to the train tile base.
Right. Yeah.
The train tile bases were done much the same way as we did in the Greek. Actually, the Greek village paint guide, ignoring the paper for the bases, is great because that was done with texture paint.
Yeah.
Sprayed on. There we go. Val's got one. So I painted the base with the texture paint first, and then I used 3 colors of graffiti paint.
Yeah.
Starting with a dark tone and a light tone, and then another dark tone, and then a mid tone on top. And it just light sprays, just literally dust coats.
Yeah.
The buildings were done much the same way. Because I painted them, I actually put the roofs on, and then sprayed them as a whole.
Yeah.
And
so was that something like?
Yeah.
Just a stone chip effect.
Yeah.
It's got quite
That's a really good one. That one, because it's quite an average base to do it in.
I used that on my temple ring video. Yeah.
And then basically the buildings, to say, they were done with the 3-tone colours as well. Yeah. Sand coloured base, and then a mid colour, and then rather than paint the whole building all over, what I did was actually spot spray in different areas, so that what you're getting is a different tonal effect across it. And like it says in the book, it's not is that depending on how you hold it, if you angle the can right, you can actually miss parts of the building, but you're just getting a tone on the edge.
Top edges, or bottom edges,
So you can highlight the top edges. Airbrushing guys would understand the technique, and anybody that's played a lot with trying not to hit certain parts of the car, because you forgot to mask up parts of the windscreen, angling it. So that was how they were done, and then just to give a little bit more depth into the nooks and crannies, I've used a sepia ink wash in there. Because the spray paints are waterproof, as all spray paints are, it's quite often, sometimes if you've got a brush on matte acrylic, just to brush a little bit in there, because that helps the sepia ink washes to stick.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. So a bit of matte first.
It's all to do with surface tension. What you can actually do is quite often, there's actually quite an old video on the Facebook page where I flood an area that's been sprayed with a lot of water. You're gaining surface tension by a lot.
Yeah.
And as it dries, then you put the ink wash in.
Yeah. Could you get away with
flood?
It's softer as well when you do it like that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Softens it out. I sometimes use a touch of dishwasher detergent.
Yes, that'll do the same thing. Yeah, but as it
only a
dries,
little touch though.
yeah, as it dries and it's still sort of damp, just add a little bit more into the actual corner parts. You know.
Yeah.
What feathers out into the damp areas, and you get that intense colour. It's a not airbrushed cheap.
Okay. Steve, let's have a quick question then. With these orders, obviously this is the Alamo out. How long does it take for a set to be taken through from beginning to end of cutting to shipping, for an example?
The whole Alamo. It's probably about I'm trying to think, there's like 29 different, it's like 29 kits in it or something if you take them all individually as sections, but it's probably, there's a couple of hours worth of work in it, laser work, then you've got to check it, pack it all, the instructions and things like that, so it's a big chunky kit.
And you know, might be done over several days because we wouldn't just do one building, one set.
No, we'll do them in batches, so we'll work through it in sections, but there's no point in cutting all the different bits to the totals, because then you end up waiting for the last thing to cut to send the first one out. So we'll do it. We've got them split up into batches, so we can maximise the number of kits we can get out at one time. So that we'll have a couple of days cutting, and then we can. All those ones will get sorted and out the door, and then we'll restart again. So it works the best way.
So that from the perspective of cutting, it takes those steps to come all the way through. When it gets to you, Gary, how long did it take you to work your way through those 29 kits? For a paint job.
There is a little thing in CAD where you can type in time. I haven't got the file open, but I know it was quite a few days worth, 24 hours in a day sort of attitude to it. I couldn't tell you. It's a good few weeks worth of work, but that starts with the sketching and building not just what it's going to look like of sketching, but because it's modular and things had to link together, it's then working out all of those bits and pieces.
And then people make suggestions about things they'd like to see after you've done a little bit of the work.
And then the nature of the beast is reconfigurable. So which is brilliant, because it's designed in 3D in CAD. I can easily move things around, check things match up and bond in different places, and then reconfigure it all again. And then once I'm satisfied with that, we've had yet another chat about adding a well. We then then it gets 2D, so it's quite a intense process, really.
It is when there's that many kits, because even if we did a range with 29 kits in it, they're all individual kits, so each one in itself is sort of isolated, isn't it? You know, you've got a theme running through them, but they're all their own standalone little kits. And there'll be some common elements between them, but when the whole thing has to work as one, but work in lots of other ways as well, it's a real mincer.
And it was good when we got the actual kits cut, and we could actually move them around and try them out. So obviously all that work in the background that people won't have seen is that the CAD work and moving it and checking it there. But we've also spent quite a bit of time seeing what versions and layouts we could come up with, and it's hundreds. There's so many different ways we could build it, which is how we, of course, came out with the idea of having those compounds, if you like.
Yeah.
And what sort of games have we considered for this so far, do you reckon, Steve?
It's a bit of everything, isn't it? You know, some cowboys. I mean, the Mediterranean, the Greek sort of Mediterranean stuff is very similar to it. You could mix them together. There's nothing to stop you. They will work as well. They'll all joins in the walls, so you can mix and match. But I mean, you know, you could use them. You could use them in the Middle East. They could be, you know, South America, Mexico, South America. Lots of play, even going over colonial. I mean, if you covered them in some vines and put grass around them, it could be a little colonial compound somewhere as well. You know, that's fallen into ruin.
It certainly, as a range, fits in nicely with the desert fort, of course, as well.
Yeah,
that worked quite well as it all came together. What about scaling of it? How did you come about with the? Because obviously, if we did the full scale at 28 mil, it would be absolutely horrendously large. But we've managed to squeeze it and work it into a tabletop sort of scale.
Scale's always a funny one because it's relative to the person looking at it. Sometimes, you know, some people. I think if we did everything to scale, they'd be huge. Most of them, even a small terraced house is actually quite a big bit of real estate on a tabletop, the kind of confines of a tabletop. But you're dealing with silly ranges as well. So, you know, a gun might only shoot 24 inches, which means you put 3 buildings together, and you're lucky to shoot you'd be lucky if you could shoot your next door neighbour in his garden at that range. You know, so. You know, so you have to sort of drop things down and make so it becomes a question of detail, doesn't it, Gary?
Yeah, it's one of those. It's at the start. It's a really good conversation about what the games rules are, because I'm happily clueless about games rules, but that means that I can take a detached view to it. Steve says shrink it size. It says what's a good gaming size, and then it's a lot of research into the building style, because the Alamo was a particular fort that had become a bit derelict. But you can make it very forty, and then it starts being restricted in its use, or you can make it more Adobe 40 and make certain parts very much the features of Alamo, but because of the way we've done it, you can pull them apart and be used in totally different scenarios. So
I think the chapel's a good example of that, I would say, wouldn't you? The chapel, the layout, the look of it. I know we had some people saying about the way the top of the chapel looked, but I think from the renders it was
an angle thing there, isn't it? Because it was rebuilt afterwards, wasn't it? They rebuilt the top of it afterwards. So,
and we've gone before that with the actual rubble effect. Actually, speaking of chapels, haven't we got a Spanish chapel that you worked on in the book?
There's it's a Maltese church from Malta.
That in front of you, Steve?
I do. It's not glued. It's not glued together.
I know, but that one that would be really good in the Peninsular War, for example.
It's just small. It's sort of 6x4-ish with the steps, so it's only a small footprint, but it's nice little kit.
Yeah, but scale on that, of course. That's kind of what we're talking about, isn't it? Where you've played about with the real sort of thing, looked at variations, inspiration, or any particular, or
there is an inspiration of a particular church for that one. I don't have a lot of pictures that I can show you from it. I found a few grainy ones knocking around.
Well, perhaps we'll look at that in a future video and see what we can, because that's not been released yet, has it, Steve?
It's not. No. There's a pile of kits to go with it as well.
We're calling them the Northern Mediterranean range.
There you go.
Right. Yes. Yeah. But of course.
Another one.
Oh, right, another one.
Oh, now that looks nice. It's got the right roof. Brilliant. Balconies too.
Yeah.
Of course, a lot of our buildings, if people actually have a good look at them, they get used all over the place, particularly those styles. There, you see them across Europe, don't you? And yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So that's quite well progressed. The rest of the range is just getting sort of polished off at the moment. The church features in the book, but there's a whole range around that as well. So,
fantastic.
AJ's a busy bee at the moment, so with production.
Fantastic. Well, let's have a look at some of the question from last week, Gary. It was about water and going down to the terrain tile. And you've got something.
Yeah, carry on, Rich. I'm just going to switch cameras.
All right, you switch. You were asked if you could show us something to do with painting on the tile. Sorry, my neighbours decided to use a power drill right next to my.
I can't hear it.
Not visible or not audible. So as you can see, this is a bit of a catch-up of multiple things we've been asked in the last few weeks. So first thing was about using the water technique. I sort of quickly demonstrated, if you remember, with the little tiles using the Winsor & Newton gloopy medium, as I can call it.
Yeah.
So I've taken that onto a complete tile. This was done yesterday, so it's fully dry. And you can see that that's pretty flat on my spinning coffee table. So that's one technique, as I say, and that just shows you how you can plough something even in this hot weather, and that's not moved at all. Inside there, you can see we've got printed papers that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And then
by template.
Yeah, that's a tread plate texture.
Also, and a pot stick.
Well, that's actually a bit of scrap from a building for the landing ramp thing. So I glued two together to get that effect on there. This is a standard sci-fi pod.
Yeah.
All I've done is move one of the bulkheads inside. I'm going to take the roof off.
Oh, so the end bulkheads.
Yeah.
I see what you've done. Yeah, you moved the end right inside. Yeah.
Inner bulkheads, I've just moved one to one end, cut the tabs off of the end bulkhead and moved that along. I've also popped the door out on the living quarters. I've put some printed acetate
in there. Oh, acetate, yes.
Yeah, and I've popped some of the windows out as well. You can see, or they're normally not sort of technical vent things, and I've always thought them as windows, so they've been taken out and acetate put in. All the furniture in there, if I tilt it up. Oh,
other end.
There we go.
There's a load of pictures of that, so we'll stick them all up.
Yeah, we'll see if we can do that for the weekend. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's just all scrap put together. And that say on the outside, I'm going to possibly switch to my main laptop camera for this one because it's a little bit.
Have you used some kind of crackle paint?
Yes. So we had the questions about crackle a couple of weeks ago, and so I've used it. All I've done is I sprayed a red base, and then I patched the crackle medium on it. I didn't paint it all over, so you can see some areas are dead flat.
Yep. So
it's the same base on the orange, and then that's just using the crackle medium as we showed in the video in the TV thing last week.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I think it's pretty wicked.
That's a really lovely peeled paint effect.
Yeah, which is what the guy was on about having proper, real peeled looking paint as opposed to just cracky paint. And then that's just the rust. I'm using Model Mates, who, as we know, doesn't exist anymore. I bought my model shop's last supply of the Model Mates one. I've got quite a bit. But
there's so many weathering powders and rust colours. AK Interactive is awesome, but enamel. But you can do all sorts. The basic inks from Army Painter are pretty good for getting some effects, rusty effects and everything.
Well, the other one that's quite good,
talc or something, into them just to give a bit of texture,
is you can paint it. Not joking. We use. I knew that would be upside down. That is your base. It's like dark rust.
Yep.
Single rot. And then as a medium,
Yep.
That's brown.
Those are the Rebel paints, aren't they? The basic acrylic.
And then I use an orange.
Yeah.
And mix a bit of yellow in there to highlight it. And you can mix that up to be quite a thick rust. That's what I like, choosing different effects for different models. And then there are also, they're not great. That's another one, Rail Match.
Yep.
Their labels aren't great, but you get like dark rust. And then there's a medium.
We share the photos. We can share all the colour that those
on a PDF to have a look at.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Brake dust.
Great. Cool.
That's quite a light one. So there's plenty of paints out there for it.
Brilliant.
Gregory's asking for, he wants us to do a little master class on the ice water tiles. Show that off.
Okay.
Sometime. So we do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
It's actually is it in the terrain tile guide, isn't it? There's a bit in there, isn't there, on doing that? There's a small section in it.
Rocky Craggy Island as well, which we haven't released yet.
Yeah. So there is a couple of articles as well that talk about it, so we can maybe sort those, get them up, and then we'll do a little video around it as well.
Yeah. So I'm looking around this to another screen and another machine just to check where I am. But yeah, there's one called Craggy Island.
Not around to that I can show. Yeah. It's definitely. I think we'll work on a few little masterclasses over the coming weeks and see if we can talk about those each Thursday.
Yeah.
I think it'll work really well.
Well, that was just to answer Gregory. That's sort of a conglomerate of 3 or 4 weeks questions that we've decided to throw them all into one kit.
See, we try and answer all your questions here. It might be a week or two later, but we'll get to it. So I think, thank you very much, Gary. Have we got any more questions coming in at all?
Yeah, John's just asking, is there a specific, the Winsor Newton stuff, is there a specific one that you use? Because there's heavy structure gel.
That's the one for the water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gallery, yeah. And the crackle.
The crackle. Where have I put that?
He's looking.
I have it's here.
You can tell we really prepped for this, eh?
Oh, yeah.
Now, there are other versions. You can get them with the toy soldier tax as well. But this, I mean, that's you hardly use it. You dribble it on, and it brushes really quite thin.
Weathered wood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So there's a few. You can get rust ones as rust for bubbling.
Okay.
To make the bubbling.
If we can put everything together for people on a little video clip, I'll do a bit of a work, and we'll get a PDF that you've sent through. Yeah, we'll get that up on as soon as we can for the weekend.
Yeah, I quite like Rich's. I'll have a go to videos. It's good. Well, it just shows it's a spread and easy thing to
absolutely
pick it up for it.
And I think it would just leave it to say that if anybody's having a go at these techniques and they get hold of, say, the upcoming Mediterranean range and want to do a photo shoot for Kelly's Heroes and send it all in to show us what they've done, that would be absolutely fantastic. But I think we'll wrap up tonight and say thank you very much for everybody for watching. Hope you're staying safe. Gary?
Thank you very much. Enjoy.
Okay, and from Steve?
Yeah, cheers, guys.
Okay, see you all, guys.
See ya, bye.
Yeah, bye.
See you Thursday.